No doubt about it. We are going through some interesting times in video games. The consolidation is real. And, listen, I did a previous video about Sony kind of begging for Microsoft not to own Activision going forward, saying that Call of Duty was a game that has no rival and things like that. And it really kind of depends on where you stand on how you feel about that, right? Like Call of Duty is a huge game, but Microsoft has no intentions of pulling it off PlayStation to begin with. So I don't see how a game that's going to be on PlayStation as well is going to make people choose Xbox over PlayStation. I don't really buy into that. Let's just be real. Microsoft had a ton of Call of Duty content previously, and that didn't make people really buy PlayStation or Xbox over PlayStation. So, yeah, I don't really see how that would kind of correlate one with the other. But now Microsoft has actually kind of responded to Sony, and we get kind of a little bit more detail about sort of what's going on here. And I got to say, I think that Microsoft is, just laying it all on the line. We are at the closing end of this deal, and things are getting closer and closer to actually kind of coming true, and Microsoft owning Call of Duty. I can't believe that's going to happen. It's just so crazy to think about. For me personally, I don't really care if the game's on PlayStation and Switch or everywhere else. It doesn't matter. I think the bigger factor is the Call of Duty game being on Game Pass day one. I think that's going to be tremendous for Game Pass, tremendous for Microsoft. Obviously we're going to continue to see a stiff competition between Microsoft and Sony, but I think that that's going to help Microsoft long term to continue to be looked at as a viable option to PlayStation, right? So, the way these things kind of work is strange still, and I still think like if you're a big fan of PlayStation for their exclusives, which everybody touts and says that's the reason they buy PlayStation, then what would Call of Duty have to do with that? Um, I think that's probably a big question to ask in and of itself. Now, Microsoft's response, I don't think Microsoft was very heated or anything like that, but when you even have Amazon and Google and these other companies stating, hey, we're not sweating this, blah, 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 I think that it kind of goes and shows a long way that Microsoft owning Activision doesn't really change much. I mean, Microsoft is going to make more money because, Call of Duty is a big game, but so is World of Warcraft and Diablo and Overwatch, and they have some big franchises, and I think that things are going to continue to do well for them, but I don't think that it's going to take away anything from PlayStation. I mean, PlayStation sounds salty possibly because they're paying to directly fund Xbox is essentially what's happening. So I want to get into this. I think it's going to be a good video. Thanks for sticking around. If you watch the video, please like the video, because I'm trying to get 100 likes on each of the videos that I do. That's not a ton of likes, but it's something. So let's get there together. Let's get started. Now, I don't think Sony really has anything to worry about. Like, Sony's been in much worse shape than this, but it is very interesting because Microsoft is claiming now that Activision Blizzard games are not quote-unquote must-have titles. They're defending their acquisition of Activision Blizzard by claiming none of the studio's games are must-have experiences in the game industry. So we'll leave that up for interpretation, but Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard may finally be coming to an end. Before the deal can be closed down, however, all the pertinent authorities need to sign off on it, and with an acquisition as big and complex as this one, there's no shortage of complexities for the software giant's lawyers to untangle. In its latest effort to defend the Activision Blizzard acquisition against naysayers, Microsoft has stated that the publisher of Call of Duty, Diablo, World of Warcraft, and other assorted IP does not in fact have any must-have games in its library. This information actually comes from Microsoft's letter to the Commerce Commission of New Zealand as justification for the acquisition at large. From the very start, there's been no shortage of criticism and skepticism surrounding Microsoft's Activision acquisition. In fact, Blizzard shareholders sued Microsoft in an attempt to stop the deal from passing through, though that doesn't seem to have gone anywhere. In regard to the NZCC, the chief concern seems to be whether the acquisition constitutes a breach of antitrust law, and the majority of Microsoft's argumentation is being built up to refute that notion. On top of Activision Blizzard games not being must-have titles, Microsoft has also pointed out that it would continue offering the relevant titles on a multitude of platforms. Curiously, the document goes on to some lengths to show that it doesn't take AAA tier capital to produce a desirable, well-performing game, with the prime example being low-budget mobile games that end up going viral. Generally, the document seems to be designed to tackle criticisms such as the U.S. Senator's letter of concern about Activision Blizzard's and the closure of the deal. It is, of course, worth pointing out that there's an ongoing insider trading investigation over the Microsoft Activision acquisition, and that the U.S. Federal Trade Commission doesn't seem too happy about the almost $70 billion deal that's being made either. Broadly speaking, it seems that almost every pertinent authority is critical of Microsoft's approach to the matter at hand due to the sheer size of the deal. While Activision Blizzard's price of acquisition is certainly sky high, Microsoft could profit immensely should the deal go through. Diablo Immortal earned over $100 million in just 8 weeks on mobile platforms alone. For example, adding Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and other high-profile Activision Blizzard King properties to the mix would effectively make Microsoft one of the most comprehensive gaming companies on the planet, which could be a scary prospect to some people. Now, listen, so everybody knows, like I've stated previous times, this whole deal and people saying, oh, well, is the deal going to go through or not? This whole situation is one that is kind of brought about in a weird sort of circumstance, in that they've already kind of triggered this clause that the deal will go through no matter what happens at a particular point. And like I said, I think that's the end of the month. Once this stuff goes through with the FTC and things like that, it's a little bit more difficult. It really doesn't seem like it's going to be able to go, it isn't going to be something that kind of happens. But what's happening here is also this quote that they don't have any must-have games or whatever is sort of weird, because the point is that Call of Duty isn't the only FPS and Overwatch isn't the only hero shooter. These games aren't must-have in order to play those kinds of games, specifically referring to video game companies having to foreclose because those types of games won't be available. So that's what they're saying. They're not necessarily saying, oh, well, you know what, they don't have any must-have games or anything like that. They're saying that these games is very interesting. So the other interesting part is that Ubisoft answered that they don't think Activision Blizzard has unique games because there's no such video game title that doesn't have close competition, and publishers and games compete for available playtime, and no title stands alone in its own genre. So, they've kind of spoken, all these companies are speaking about these types of things, and, we continue to see lots of things happen, and there's a lot of movement from Microsoft, there's a lot of movement from these different companies, and you pretty much get what you'd expect from Sony themselves. I think Sony feels like at some point Microsoft might make these games exclusive or whatever. I just don't see that happening. Like, Call of Duty is a huge game. I think you make so much more from this if Call of Duty continues to be its own thing, and I think that's why they'll continue to have Call of Duty be its own thing. Now, will that hurt Sony? Listen, I don't really know. Sony is their own kind of company. I think Sony at the end of the day will be fine, but I also think that obviously Microsoft has their own plans for this type of stuff, and that it does help Game Pass, which could help Microsoft in the long term. I mean, if you're somebody who buys Call of Duty yearly, it might make more sense to have Game Pass and go to Xbox, but we'll see how it works out. With that being said, rack 'em up, fact 'em up, crap gamer 'em up. If you watch the content, please leave a like on the video. It helps it to be seen and the channel to grow. Have a great day. Crap gamer out.